Why did I buy the Teyun Q-12? I wanted a USB audio interface to use with OBS Studio that had the following features: a 3.5 millimeter condenser mic input that would work with my headset microphones. This seems to be a very rare feature and is different from phantom power for high-end condenser mics. A balanced XLR input that'll work with my Electrovoice 664A supercardioid mic, a headphone monitor without any latency, physical volume controls and knobs I can turn and sliders I can push, and I wanted it to be affordable. Features I don't need are 48-volt phantom power, line level inputs, guitar inputs, line level outputs, idiotic sound effects, and reverb. Anyway, so looking on AliExpress, I found this and looked at a few reviews that existed and decided to pick this up. It was $16 with free shipping, $17 with tax, and was on my doorstep 5 days after I ordered it. So this is what it looks like up close. Up on top, there's two combination XLR jacks with that work in true differential mode, and also will take 1/4-inch phone plugs. Down below here, there's a 3.5 millimeter monophone plug for a condenser microphone input. It's compatible with Rode and Sennheiser mics and most inexpensive condenser mics that use a 3.5 millimeter plug. It supplies 3.16 volts with a 5.3K pull-up resistor. On top, there's two 1/4-inch mono float for phone plug outputs if you want to use this thing as a mixer. And there's also a 3.5 millimeter stereo headphone plug for real-time monitoring. On the bottom left, there's a level 1 volume control. It controls the level of input 1 and the condenser mic both. There's no way to individually control those. The next one over, it controls the level of input 2. Next comes the main output volume control, and that controls the volume going to these main outputs up the top if you want to use it as a mixer, but it has absolutely no effect on the level going to the A to D converter. And on the far right is a headphone volume only knob. So there's a button on the top left here that's for 48-volt phantom power. Unfortunately, instead of providing 48 volts, it provides a very flaccid 35 volts, which droops to 31. And the resistors aren't the standard 6.8K resistors, but 8.2Ks. So it's not very good phantom power. There's a 6 dB, there is a gain that says plus 10 dB on input 2, but it adds 6 dB, not 10 dB of gain. This next button is for mono or stereo. When it's up, it's in mono mode, and both input 1 and input 2 feed in to both the left and right channel. When it's down for stereo, input 1 goes in the left channel and input 2 goes into the right channel. There's a button that says record. When it's down, it actually does loop back. So if you're playing a sound on your computer through this, it will loop that back into the audio stream. If the button's up, only the analog inputs going into the input 1, 2, or the condenser mic will go into the audio stream. Regardless of the button condition, the sound coming from the computer into this unit is fed into both the main and the phone outputs. Now there's peak lights on the input on level 1 or input 1 and input 2, and they're pretty much useless. They don't start to light till many dB after the ADC or analog to digital converter clips. So they're really of no use. Now there's some peak lights over here above the main volume control, and when the main volume control is turned completely clockwise, they're relatively useful. So if you look at these, so the green LEDs will light when the differential inputs are at about minus 46 dBV. The red lights, peak lights, will light up when the input hits minus 37 dBV. And the maximum input to the ADC without clipping is minus 34 dBV. Now, these would be very useful if this thing had enough gain, but it doesn't. So in practice, although they work, they're not that useful for microphone inputs. So based on tests I did, I've put together this kind of not so simplified block diagram of how the unit works. So over here on the left, we have the 3 inputs. Up on top is the condenser mic input. You can see it's got a 3.16 volt supply with a 5.3 k ohm resistor. Now down here is the input 1, and this is the combined XLR and line mic. And the phantom power switches to 35 volts, not 48 volts. And the pulled up by 8.2K resistors, not the 6.A, which is normal. And then input 2 duplicates that. So now both the condenser mic and input 1 go into a mixer, and on both input 1 and input 2, when you plug into the line jack, it switches over to the line port, and the gain drops when you use the quarter-inch line input from 45 dB to 21.5 dB. And so there's a plus 10 dB switch on the on input 2, and when you press it, it adds another 6.6 dB of gain, not 10 dB. And then both of those go into, so here's the level controls for level 1 and level 2. And then this is the switch you press to get mono. This up here is the switch for the loopback switch. And here's some mixers. I'm going to include a PDF of this presentation with a link in the text. So if you want to look at this diagram more, you can look there. So here's some actual frequency responses I measured in this unit. The yellow, this is with differential inputs into the XLR inputs. The yellow trace is input 1, and it's 13 hertz to 14 kilohertz. The red trace is input 2, and it's the same response, but a couple tenths of a dB higher. And then the blue trace is input 2 with the plus 10 dB switch pressed. And you can see it's only 6.6 dB higher, not the 10 dB the switch is labeled. Now this is the phase response for all 3 of the XLR inputs. Now we're looking at using the quarter-inch phone jack inputs. And the yellow, again, is channel 1. The red is channel 2. But these don't match as good as the XLR inputs. There's about a little over maybe 1.2, 1.4 dB difference, you can see. And when you press the plus 10 dB button, we get this blue trace up above. And again, it's 6.6 dB up, not 10 dB. So now this is the phase response of the line inputs, and that's what it is. Now this is the frequency response, this blue trace of the condenser mic input, and it goes, and you can see with it, it's a less than 10 hertz to up to about 10 kilohertz for the 3 dB point. Now let's take a look at the specs published on the box. The frequency response, I measured essentially 20 hertz to 13 kilohertz, not the 20 to 20 kilohertz they say. The dynamic range they specify is actually close to what it is, so we'll say that one's good. The total harmonic distortion I got was 0.1 to 0.18%, not the 0.03% they claim. The maximum input level is actually minus 34 dBV, not the plus 6 dBV they claim. And I measured a common mode rejection ratio of greater than 36 dB, and that's very good, and I don't know why they don't claim that, and that spec is missing on most of these things, but it should be included. So the gain range is wrong. It's lower than they show in the specs. For the unbalanced input, the maximum input is much lower than they show. Again, the gain is much lower than they show. And I didn't test this half input balanced input stuff. Now down here for the main output, they've essentially copied the specs from above. I don't know where they got these. It seems their marketing department came up with these specs by direct rectal extraction instead of measuring anything. So here, the maximum output level, it says for the headphones are 15 milliwatts on each side. I didn't measure it, but any headphones I've plugged into it sound good, so I didn't really bother. It's 16 bits, 48 kilohertz. It's plug and play compatible with Windows 10 and Mint Linux. I don't have a Mac, but it worked fine with Windows 10 and Linux without any software needed to be installed. And it says here the power requirements are greater than 5 watts. Again, I don't know where they got that. It's less than 1.8 watts when not driving headphones. So this is the unit on my desk and how I'm using it now. You can see I have the condenser mic input plugged into the headphone on the left side, and then I have my Electro Voice mic plugged into the XLR on the right with the gain turned up, and that's what I'm recording this audio with, is using the Electro Voice mic. Now, when I use it with OBS Studio, I have to add some gain because the gain is too low. So once you set up the Teyun Q-12, you right-click on those 3 buttons there and select Advanced Audio Properties, and then you come up and I add 16 to 20 dB of gain there to get the levels up to where they should be for the recording. Of course, that brings up your noise floor. Not ideal, but it's what you need to do to get this thing to work. Now let's talk about the Q12 cell service EMI susceptibility. I live near cell phone towers that sometimes cause EMI issues. And with no analog inputs connected to this unit, I don't detect any susceptibility to EMI. With differential XLR microphones connected, I don't detect any EMI susceptibility. But when I connect my Shure PGA31A condenser headset mic, I detect low-level cell phone EMI in the headphone audio. I have no way of knowing if this EMI is being detected, in other words, converted to audio by the mic or the Teyun. It could be the mic or a combination of the two, but it's there. When I use the noise suppression filters in OBS Studio, it seems to eliminate the noise in the recording. And I have 2 short examples with the OBS noise suppression filter to show you here. Please note that I've turned the volume up on the following recordings to make the noise more audible than in practice. Let's listen to what the noise sounds like with the OBS filter turned off. Now let's listen to what it sounds like with the OBS noise suppression filter turned on. Let's talk about the good and the bad of the Teyun Q-12. Good, it's got excellent physical construction. It's amazingly good for what you pay for this thing. I'm going to release another video after this one with a complete teardown and details of some of the measurements I made. But the construction's excellent. It's got true differential XLR inputs with good common mode rejection. It's got a 3.5 millimeter condenser mic input, which seems to be a hard to find feature on these things. Got a headphone monitor with real time, no latency, which is something I like. It's usable with OBS Studio if you add 16 to 20 dB of gain in the audio properties. It has knobs that you can use to adjust the microphone and the headphone levels. And it's plug and play with Windows and Linux and probably Mac, and no special software is needed. You just plug it in and the damn thing works. Now, what's wrong with it? The flaccid phantom power. I wouldn't trust it to power anything. Don't use this, get this if you need phantom power. It needs more gain. Ideally, it would have 20 dB more gain. The signal level LEDs are essentially useless because even the ones that work aren't good enough because there's not enough gain in the unit to bring the mics up to that level. The 3.5 condenser mic input, the voltage is on the low side. It's 3.16 volts. It should be closer, somewhere between 5 and 10 volts, but it works, and it's got a barely perceptible pop-pop noise from the local cell service, but the OBS noise filter kills it. Anyway, so let's go to the conclusion. This thing is 48 kilohertz at 16 bits. I've been using my 16-bit motherboards for years to record sound. It's the most modern thing, but it works okay for voice if you keep the levels up. And I've been using a 48 kilohertz sample rate for the audio in all my videos. It's flawed, but still useful. I'm using it to record the sound for this video. I only paid $17 for the damn thing delivered to my door. And I'll put a link in the description text below so you can hopefully get it for that same price or less. And the only other thing I've looked at that has the features I want and fixes the gain issues of this is something like a Yamaha AG03, and that's more than 10 times the price of this unit. Hopefully I've given you enough information to decide if the Q12 is right for you. I think I've decided to keep mine. Anyway, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to get notified of my subsequent videos and know when I publish them, please subscribe and select the all for the notifications. And when I put up the teardown video of this thing, you'll get notified. Anyway, thank you for watching.